to RPMBassy. We're going to be counting down our top 20 vinyl records. At the moment we are on number 11. I'm going to be starting off first. So my pick for number 11 is the album Labor Days by the rapper Aesop Rock. This isn't his debut, but I think for a lot of people it's kind of like the one that kind of started him off, really. He had an album prior to this called Float that was an actual officially released album on a label, and he had an album before that which was self-released. Basically he just, burnt it himself on CDRs and distributed it himself. But this is kind of the one that everyone sort of sees as his breakout into the world of hip-hop. It's kind of a loose concept album about like work and like the idea of just the daily grind.
God, I can do loads of albums like that.
Yeah. Big standout track from this obviously is Daylight, which I think a lot of people will know. Kind of really characterised by the production on it. So it's obviously produced by Aesop Rock, but also Blockhead and Omega One. Blockhead kind of has his fingers all over this album. The sort of stuff that he does is very ethereal, and this album especially, you can kind of hear what he's done with it. There's flutes all over the place on this, and they're like soaking in reverb. And Daylight is where that really stands out, like super haunting, like flute lead line.
It's kind of a theme going through some of yours. So you got panpipes and flutes.
Yeah,
so you're a bit of a wind instrument kind of guy, right?
It's not something that I thought about, but yeah, like a lot of it has that sort of feel to it. Lyrically, this album as well, like, instrumentally it's fantastic, but the vocals and the lyricism on it, it just kind of blows my mind that it almost upsets me that he's not bigger than he is. He's not an unpopular rapper by any stretch of the imagination, but he definitely sits on the, there's almost two sides of rap where you've got kind of the ones talking about, being poor or downtrodden or, struggling in the world, and then you've got the other side which is sort of like the rich, the famous, the hustlers and all the loyalty or all the money and the jewelry and things like that. But this is definitely on the former, and this was recorded while he was still working a 9-to-5 job, and I think a lot of it is about that kind of the way he feels during it, and kind of having the courage to get up and quit and go and do music for a living. And I mean, it's a good way to kind of set yourself up in that, because this is a fantastic album. As I said, Daylight, fantastic track, really good use of samples on that song. 9-to-5ers anthem as well, really amazing track.
But when he said, I thought you were going to say A$AP Rocky, because it's really kind of close to that.
So there's been a lot of confusion with that over the years.
It's the same kind of genre. And
yeah, I've spoken about him to several people in the past, and they've assumed that that's what I've meant. But yeah, he was around first. He got the name first.
People probably think, oh my god, Mark thinks it's called Aesop Rock.
Yeah. But yeah, and to be honest, like, this is a fantastic album, and he's only gotten better since.
The artwork's really cool.
Yeah, fantastic artwork. I don't know whether or not this is drawn by him or not. He is an artist as well. And certainly some of his more recent albums go into that. His 2016 album, Impossible Kid, has a load of references to him, like, essentially having quit making art, and how that made him feel and stuff like that. So he's just a fantastic artist, musician.
Signed as well.
You
didn't even know that, did you? That looks like a proper signature. I don't think it's part of the artwork, is it? That's
just the album title.
Oh, is it?
I wish it was signed.
Just pretend it was signed.
Yeah, we'll just say it was. Amazing album, amazing lyricist. The stuff that he comes up with, I'm sure a lot of people would kind of assume it's all nonsense, but when you kind of, it really needs those multiple listens for you to kind of dig in and kind of get the sort of poetic element of it and really understand what he's trying to get at. Because when it sort of hits you, you kind of realise like, oh, that's what he meant. And when it clicks, it really has something to it. So yeah, cool. That's my one.
For my number 11, and again, I keep saying this a bit, but this genuinely was really hard because I absolutely love this band, and I'm sure you do too. There's a big fan base for this band, but the reason why I chose this album because at the time this came out in 1983, so I was 13 years old, just turned 13 years old, and I was living in Cyprus, so outside of the UK. So for me to kind of get to hear kind of British music was quite difficult. So there used to be one radio show, and so I cottoned onto this band like really early on with the first couple of albums, but they brought this out, and this was definitely a soundtrack for me for 1983, and it's the classic Depeche Mode, Construction Time Again. So as I said, this came out in 1983, and I think 83 was quite an exciting time for music, even though I was a big fan of previous to this, very kind of a new romantic synth pop. This was kind of a bit of a change for them because the more industrial, and I believe this is when they started sampling, and they got the hold of the first sampler. They were sampling stuff. I believe it was this album, or it could be the next one, but quite industrial. And this was the first album that Alan Wilder had joined them on as well after Vince Clarke leaving, who wrote two of the songs. I believe they were Pipeline and The Landscape is Changing. I think it was the two tracks he wrote. The title of this album came from the track Pipeline as well. It was one of the lines in Pipeline, and that's where this came from. So this isn't the name of the track, Construction Time Again. Every track on this album I think is just great. From 2 Minute Warning, which is brilliant. You've got Martin Gore doing a lot of the vocals on a lot of these tracks as well, and obviously the big tracks like Everything Counts, which is still a big one for them now. If you've ever seen the 101 concert and they do Everything Counts, that just makes your hair stand up the back, and it's just incredible. But some of the tracks, you've got Everything Counts, 2 Minute Warning, Landscape is Changing, I've Told You So. It's such a minimal, underrated track. If you haven't heard it, please check that out now. I don't know why that didn't come out as a single. They did release Love in Itself as a single, but I thought there was better tracks on this album. So my number 11 is Depeche Mode, Construction Time Again, and I'm sure we're going to do future videos on Depeche Mode. I think both of us are big fans, so we may do our favourite top 10 albums or singles or something, or 12-inch mixes, because the mixes for this band are just incredible. And that's my number 11, Depeche Mode, Construction Time Again.